You're gonna wear the hat, huh?
I'm gonna wear the hat.
Okay.
I apologize. So on my PowerPoint, I had this like really funny slide. It was like the Death Star. I don't know if you know what that is, like blowing up Earth. It was super cool. It was awesome, and it totally segued into what I'm going to talk about, which is the Earth is dying. But it's not the Death Star. It's like it's us that's killing the Earth. It's the pollution that we're creating. It's all these things that we're doing to make global warming. It's cars. It's methane from cows. It's just everything that we're doing wrong, kind of, in the world. And it's causing lots of issues right now, like the drought we're suffering in California. We're all kind of experiencing that right now. And so in the United States, a fifth of our greenhouse gas emissions, which go towards global warming, come from cars. Like our personal vehicles, us driving around, a fifth of that is from cars. So I'm going to just try and address basically that issue and try and like bring the average MPGs up a little bit, which would make our emissions go down. So I'm going to kind of attack the lower portion, and I want to get rid of some of the SUVs. I think American society should stop its obsession with SUVs and kind of be more realistic with itself. So 3 things I'm going to look at are MPGs, why they're important. I'm going to look at how many people actually utilize their cars. And then I'm just going to kind of throw in some extra points at the end of like good things that would come out of it. So an SUV, for those of you who don't know, is defined on Wikipedia as a sport utility vehicle or suburban utility vehicle, usually equipped with 4-wheel drive for on or off-road ability. Some SUVs include the towing capacity of a pickup with the carrying space of a minivan. So they're big cars. They're big V8 cars. They can go off-road, and they can carry like 7 to 8 people in them. So once, with my PowerPoint it would have been a little bit better. But basically, we have 1.7 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions coming out of the United States every year. And this is between 210 million registered drivers. So if you average that out, and this is all coming from fueleconomy.gov. This isn't like me on my own tangent doing research and just throwing numbers together. I'm kind of just presenting what was on there. So between 210 million drivers, it kind of worked out to about 8.5 million tons per driver, which is about 22 miles per gallon per car. The reason miles per gallon works into that is because basically a gallon of gas is 6 pounds of carbon. When you have to make CO2, you have to add 2 oxygen molecules. We all know from science class, every element has weight. So it basically becomes 20 pounds of carbon per gallon of gas. So if we were to raise the MPGs from 22 to 26, it would bring each individual's annual greenhouse gas emissions to 7, which would translate, you multiply that by 210 million drivers. That would cut it down 300 million tons of greenhouse gases. So it's a big deal. Like every little thing adds up. If you could just chop off the bottom portion, and bring up the average a little bit, it'll kind of help in a big way. The next thing I'm going to kind of talk about is, I know like you're all sitting there like, well, the people that buy these cars, they want them for a reason. They want to be able to go off-road. They want to utilize this towing capacity. So I'm going to kind of break both those down. I have a couple of quotes real quick I'm going to go into. A 1996 J.D. Power and Associates study found that 56% of sports utility vehicles never leave the pavement. And to kind of further that and give you an idea of the other half of basically what's going on, researchers at Auto Pacific Incorporated found that 13% of SUV owners say they off-road for recreation, and 21% they use it for camping or fishing. So that leaves, between those 2 studies and others that I found, it was like an average of like 60% of drivers who buy SUVs never leave pavement. So it's like, why do you buy the 4x4? It uses extra gas. There's just no reason to have it. Another thing is the towing capabilities. People buy it because it's got a big V8 engine, all this stuff. I was looking at Ford. Everything's listed on their website, towing capacity, miles per gallon, all that stuff. I went on Ford and I was just looking at the F-150, the new, they have a truck that burns ethanol basically. It's a blended gas. It's the EcoBoost. We've all seen the EcoBoost. It basically burns ethanol instead of just gasoline. Ethanol doesn't have carbon. So they have an F-150, a V6 engine that gets 22 miles per gallon in the city versus a F-250 turbo diesel which gets 14 miles per gallon in the city. So that's jumping, 8 miles per gallon right there. That would bring up the average a huge amount. And the reason I say that is because the F-150 has a towing capacity of 11,000 pounds. The F-250 has a towing capacity of 20,000 pounds. But to put that into kind of retrospect, all you really need, all the average person would need is about 6,000 pounds. Your medium-sized trailer, which is like 20 foot, so let's say like a trailer that was from me to that wall, or like a boat, that's like a good-sized boat or trailer. That's your average boat or trailer. F-150 V6 will tow that like nothing. Like it'll be totally fine. It absolutely has tow capacity. But people kind of want this status symbol. They want this big F-250. They want the turbo diesel on the side. So they decide to go get these massive cars. And the only situation you really need an F-250 in is like literally if you have like a toy hauler that's like the length of this wall and you have like 4 quads in it and you're like towing all this stuff out to the desert, that's almost the only situation where you'd actually need an F-250 other than work purposes or stuff like that. And then just some other little stuff, more common sense stuff that would be a lot nicer without these bigger trucks is as far as when I'm biking to school and stuff, I hate hearing a big engine coming behind me because it means they're gonna have a wide car, you have wide mirrors, like there's not much room for me in the bike lane. Like I feel their car go right by me. When it comes to parking spaces and a parking structure, if we could have compact parking spaces, you could fit a lot more cars in there. There'd be a lot more parking availability. And yeah, I mean, basically, I just think that a lot of people buy these cars as status symbols, or just because you think that it's like awesome and you really want it. And I think we could cut about SUVs in about half. I mean, you need it for work, you need it for if you have a big trailer, yeah. But I would just like to see maybe the consumerism of SUVs taken down a little bit. Thank you. It's been a lot.
So Renee, let us know what you thought.
I liked his attention device. He relayed, even though it was okay without the visuals, relaying about the Death Star, relating the Death Star to humans destroying the planet was good. His thesis was about stopping the population obsession with SUVs and raising miles per gallon. His supporting points. I missed some of those. I was just too busy writing. He talked about the weight in cars and the size of the engine sizes and the towing capacities, which I liked he gave a preview of what he's going to talk about. I liked his towing capacity examples of the size and the capabilities of the different engines. That was good. He quoted credible sources like J.D. Powers. His example about chemicals, that's a hard, for me, that would be hard to, bring in scientific evidence, but he broke it down into layman's terms for at least me. Let's see, at the, let's see, he was pacing back and forth, and that was a little distracting for me. He had eye contact with the different sides of the audience. I didn't really hear a review at the end. Just a little quick one. So I didn't really consider it a review. And the closing, I would have liked more persuasive closing. I can't think of how he could have closed it in more distracting. That's about it for me.
Okay. Go ahead. Excuse me. I stepped on the applause line. Excuse me. I thought you did okay with your visualization at the beginning. I don't think you needed the Death Star to explode for us. The idea that we're doing things that are potentially dangerous to the planet, that's good. You don't really get too deep into those issues, though. You kind of take them as a given. I think you might want to provide a little bit more information about some of the environmental threats, because you're asking people to change their lifestyles, change your preferences for the benefit of the planet, and you got to convince us that the planet is in fact going to benefit. You mentioned, if we raise the MPGs to 26 miles per gallon, it would decrease the greenhouse gases, whatever it was, 300 million tons or something like that. So, what will that 300 million tons accomplish? Will we decrease our temperature 0.7 degrees? Will the oceans not float up as high? Will that increase the amount of arable land? Is it going to prevent the drought that you claim is kind of connected to this sort of stuff? Those are some big inferences that never really get discussed. What you do a good job of is sort of ridiculing people's need. Pardon me. For the SUVs. And I thought that's where you were most effective. This has got to just sound horrible. I'm so sorry. Delivery things, they got a couple of problems. Pacing back and forth, you know that. You're inconsistent on the eye contact. Should take off the hat. But your voice is effective, so you're doing okay there.